here from Rossum Healthy. I'm with someone really, really special, Anne Osbourne, all the way from Australia. Anne, hello, hi.
Hello, hello.
Anne, you've been fruitarian for donkeys, haven't you?
Yeah, about 22 years now. I
That's
started off on my vegetarian diet, and it's obviously worked for me, and so I've stuck with it. I've tried lots of different types of vegan diet, because I was ethically a vegan, and fruit diet is the one that just personally really works well for me.
and I wanted to talk to you about transitional diet and the importance of transitional diet. So the when people switch to go from toxin-forming foods to the foods that purify them of toxins and what happens in between. So if you can just tell us about it, please.
Yes, I think transitional diets are very, very important for many people. I mean, some people will want to go straight onto, a raw diet from a sort of standard diet. And, I think obviously that can work for some people, but I think for most people, transitional diets can be really, really helpful because they get the body used to the new kind of diet, and they also limit any elimination, because a lot of people can go through elimination when they first go on a different kind of diet. And if it's too much, it can, sort of like put them off the diet and they can go right off it. But doing a transitional diet, you get to know what works for you and what doesn't. And, there usually comes a stage when you're at the point when you're ready personally, and it's all about you, not anybody else. So when you're personally ready to say, I don't need those cooked foods anymore. And you might not. I mean, for some people, they might always need a small amount of cooked food because everybody's different. But, for many people, they might come to that point and say, well, this doesn't work for me so well. The raw food is working for me better at this point, so I want to eat it. And they know, and having gone through the transitional diet, it really helps you to know what works for you and what doesn't. Whereas if you sort of go straight in, you don't get that sort of transitional diet where you're having some cooked and some raw, and you can actually compare the difference from, say, having a few all raw days to then having a few days where you're having a bit of, cooked starches or cooked vegetables. And Arnold, I really rate his works. He talks a lot about transitional diets in his books and how important they can be, and, how people can maybe not succeed on the diet because they go into it, too quickly, and the rate of elimination is too much, and they can feel really terrible, and they don't want to feel terrible. So the transitional diet can sort of, it can regulate the elimination. You can have sort of more cooked food or more fatty food to slow down the elimination. And then within the transitional diets, there's different types of transitional diet. And again, it's a very individual thing. So some transitional diets will work better for some people and others will work better for different people. For myself, I had some cooked root vegetables and some cooked vegetables, and they were the last thing to go really with my transitional diet. Other people do better just having maybe a higher fat diet, so having maybe more nuts or avocados, and then they don't want to have the cooked foods in the transitional period. So I think it's really finding what works for you. We're all individuals, we've all got the basic design of a frugivore, but we've all sort of like had different past life health histories. Our ancestors have eaten very differently, so where we are now is not just the product of our own health and our own past history, it's also the product of many, many generations of diet and lifestyle. So, we're all slightly different. As a result, our DNA is all very slightly different. We've all got the basic design of a frugivore with our hands and our teeth, our digestive system, but there are slight differences. And that's where I think the transitional diet can help, because it can tailor the diet for the individual and help the individual to know what works best for it, whether it's, better to have, higher fat or lower fat or a bit of cooked food or, all raw during that transitional period. So personally, I really rate the transitional diet. But as I say, if you want to go straight onto a raw diet from a cooked diet, then, obviously it's up to the individual. But I think Essie Honibal, who was also a long-term fruit eater, she, in her book, I Live on Fruit, she really recommends the transitional diet. She didn't do it personally, but she said she went through a lot of suffering because she didn't do that transitional diet, so she recommends it for other people. So I think the thing is to read, get informed, read Arnold, Ehret, read Essie Honibal, read other different books that talk about transitional diets, pros and cons, and then, come to your own decision and find out what works for you.
How would you define a transitional diet? What sort of foods would be included in it?
I think for some people, it's, having some cooked food, so having maybe some baked potatoes, baked sweet potatoes, or some steamed veggies, foods that don't particularly add to, sort of your mucus inside or your toxins, but don't cleanse So it's like with avocado in a way. If you're having a lot of avocado, you're not going to be cleansing in the same way as if you're having just the juicy or the lower fruits, but you're not going to be adding to your toxic load like if you were having, sort of like burgers or chips or, highly processed foods. So I think transitional foods are foods that kind of help you get through that elimination stage, and they can help slow elimination, but they're not adding to all the toxins that you've got to deal with. So that's kind of my take on what transitional foods are. And, you might go through a stage where you're having more transitional foods, and then as you go towards, where you want to be, you'll eat less and less until you're eating, mostly the foods that you want to be the mainstay of your diet. So the sort of the low-fat fruit and veggies.
Yeah,
So, the transitional foods will vary, yeah.
And we're talking about vegan, obviously, here. Just
Yes,
to divide that.
yes, yeah. For sure, I don't personally recommend anything. I'm ethically vegan, so I wouldn't personally recommend any animal products. I don't think anybody needs any animal products. Obviously, B12 can be supplemented, so I think we can get everything else we need. And vitamin D, if you're living in a cooler climate as well, can be supplemented with a vegan supplement. So, yeah, and when I talk about transitional foods, vegan foods, but with the fats, the fats will slow down elimination. Everybody knows that you're not going to eliminate if you go on a mono diet of avocados, but if you went on an orange juice diet or a grape diet, there would be some, healing and some elimination going on there. But the avocado's got a lot of nutrients in. It's certainly not going to be acidic in your body, and it's not going to add to all the toxins that are causing issues. But it's going to slow that elimination down, which is great because then you can regulate it. So if you're working, if you've got kids, if you're very, very busy and you think, I can't be doing with going through elimination, you can add, avocados or nuts, or you could add some cooked foods in there that just help, slow it down a bit.
How long did it take you to transition?
It was about 12 to 14 months, my transitional period, because when I first found out about the fruit diet, I was pregnant with my first child, and so I didn't want to go straight into, a couple of my friends sort of found out about the fruit diet at the same time, and they went straight into it, but I thought, well, I'm pregnant, so I don't want to cause any elimination that might harm the baby, so I'll do it slowly, and in retrospect, I'm very glad that I did, because I think it's helped me to stay with it, because I found out during that transitional period what worked for me, what didn't. And I got to the stage where the transitional foods that I was eating, the last one to go was like a baked potato, which, it's not harmful in itself or anything. But I found for me, in comparison with eating fruits, my body odor would change, how I felt in the morning would change. And I was ready to let it go. I knew that for me personally, raw fruits work better than cooked vegetables. And I was ready to let them go because I didn't feel as good. I could go for sort of 3 weeks and not have any cooked food at all, and then I'd have baked potatoes for a couple of days, and my body odor would change, and it was like, I don't like it as much. And when I woke up in the morning, I'd have like a strange taste on the roof of my mouth, and I can still remember that. I can still put myself back and remember that, and that kind of makes me more resolute in my diet, because I know that that's what works for me best at the moment.
Yes, excellent. What about caloric needs? Do you think that everyone needs to be eating X amount of calories when they're transitioning? Or would it vary from individual to individual?
I think everybody has very individual needs. Again, this is down to past life health histories. A lot of it is down to the condition of our guts. In our guts, we have these little finger-like minuscule projections called villi, and the villi greatly increase the surface area of the intestines. So they allow a lot more nutrients, the macronutrients and the micronutrients, to be absorbed. So if you've had a history of a lot of drug use, recreational or allopathic, if you've suffered, with allergies with grains, what can happen is the villi get destroyed. And if you've destroyed a lot of the villi, you have a much smaller surface area to absorb both your sort of fats and your proteins and your carbohydrates and your micronutrients, so your vitamins and minerals. So therefore, you may need to eat a lot more in order to assimilate what you need. I mean, obviously there's other factors such as age, such as, sort of body type, how active you are, that will depend how much you need, but a lot of it is how much you're assimilating. So somebody that's got a very damaged digestive system may need to eat a lot more, and I think it's all about eating enough for you. And if you're eating 2,000 calories and it's not enough, then yes, you need to eat more. But if you're eating, 2,000 calories and it's just right, then that's perfect. So it's about finding what works for you and realising that it's not just what goes in, because that's, to me, half an equation. If you're looking at just what goes in, you're not looking at what happens inside your body, and you're not looking at what comes out. So you're only seeing half the picture. With any science, you need the full equation. So the full equation is what goes in, what comes out, and what happens in the middle. So if what happens in the middle is great, you're assimilating 90% of what you're eating, will need to eat a lot less than somebody that's only assimilating 40 or 30% of what they're eating. So calories going in, to me, is not the full story, and it's not particularly effective in terms of looking at how much we need to eat. We really need to see how much we're assimilating. And we obviously, if we're eating a certain amount and we're losing weight or we've not got energy, we can think, well, maybe we're not eating enough. If we're eating a certain amount and we're feeling a bit lethargic and we're putting on weight and we don't want to put on weight, then we can think, well, maybe, you know, we need to eat less. But it's like looking at what's working for you.
I very much agree. Thank you very much, Anne. I really appreciate all the information you shared with us. It's excellent, and keep on shining. Thank you very much for being out there, for spreading the message of light and health. And it was great talking to you.
And you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
you.
Bye bye.